Welcome to Cheeley Law Review. My name is Ben Burnett. My guest today is Gabrielle Gravel. Gabby, welcome in.
Thank you, Ben. I'm happy to be here.
Talk to me briefly about growing up, education, and getting interested in all things legal.
Yeah, so I grew up in DeKalb County in Tucker and went to Tucker High School. I have a great group of friends that I still run with that we're all from there. We keep in touch. From there, I went to University of Georgia for undergrad, and I came in going for a political science degree. And honestly, as an 18-year-old, you don't really know what that even means or what you can even do with that. So eventually I added a double major for ecology, which I fell in love with. And I thought, hey, I want to go to law school and I want to be an environmental lawyer. I want to save the world. I want to lock up people who litter and people who pollute. Like, it was a whole Erin Brockovich thing. That movie really inspired me. And that's so cheesy, of course, because I think everybody who was in environmental law felt that way. So I made it to law school, stayed at Georgia, stayed in Athens for 7 years. I ultimately became the president of the Environmental Law Association. And I hosted an event with speakers, and it was a continuing legal education credit. So actual attorneys from around the state were able to come in and watch. And while I was there and listening to speakers who were all amazing, I realized you are really fighting against the federal government every step of the way here. You are really locked in, and you don't have a lot of freedom with what you can do. And I didn't feel like my efforts would actually pay off as much in that arena. From there, I knew I kind of want to expand my horizons and think about other areas of law. I mean, honestly, I had nobody in my family or direct family that was an attorney. I really didn't know much about the field that I was about to enter. I was kind of like completely blind, clean slate, which honestly, in hindsight's kind of been an advantage for me.
You didn't have any bad habits.
I had no bad habits. Well, I still have bad habits, but I'm trying to, I'm a sponge soaking up information from all the great people I work with all the time. By happenstance, I applied randomly to work here as a summer intern after my first year. And I didn't know Bob, but I had heard about him through the grapevine that he was a great attorney. I think this was on the heels of his Georgia Southern nursing case where he got that amazing verdict. And it was big news. Like, Mom knew about it.
Everybody who had high school or college kids in the state of Georgia knew about that
Exactly.
case.
Like, we had all heard about it. And so I was like, I wonder if this guy will give me a shot. And I just randomly sent him an email, and I don't even think that they had a summer intern program. So it was just kind of a one-off. I came here one day, and it was really informal. We sat in the kitchen, and we talked about one of Bob's favorite cases that just went to trial last summer, and that was the one in Florida. He told me everything about the case. We didn't even really talk about what working here would be like or anything like that, but he was so passionate about this case that was coming up that he had sunk, at this point, years of his life working on. I think the case started in 2018, and he was interviewing me in 2020. So he was just, his eyes lit up. He actually got up out of his chair. He was walking around the kitchen talking about it, and I'm like, wow, this guy really has his finger on the pulse of this case. He really cares. So from that point on, I was like, well, this is different. This isn't what I have an understanding about, like corporate law being or criminal law. Like,
run of the mill.
This is
pay
different.
by the hour.
Yeah.
It's all transaction based. No, I think that's a credit to start being a guy with a great reputation.
Yeah.
Leaving, doing your own thing because that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
And that's who you want to go after because the cream always rises.
Oh, yeah.
When you came after your first year of law school, did you do the same thing after your second? Did you come back here?
No, I actually wanted to. This was me still on I want to see what every option is for this law degree because I don't know. So I tried doing some in-house counsel work for a Fortune 500 company. I didn't end up finding it to be the best fit in terms of the type of law. I wanted to get back into this litigation. I spent a whole summer, and I just kept thinking, man, I liked Cheeley Law Group, and I liked the people there. And it was funny, on the last day of that summer internship where I wasn't here, Zori, who is our office manager.
Wonderful.
Zori is amazing.
If you ever want to know who runs this place, it's her.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, she texted me and was like, hey, how would you like to come back and work as an intern while you're still in doing classes and in school? And I was like, oh my God, I would love that. So I was able to come here once a week on Fridays during my 3L year and keep working on active, actual cases and help with research and help draft complaints and draft demand letters and attend depositions while I was still in school reading case law for cases that are older than me. And, not looking at things that are actively litigating. I was able to come here and work on real stuff and see how a real office runs. And, you always hear about in law school, like your senior partner is going to ask you to write a memo and here's how you respond. I was doing that in real time. So it was great to apply things I was learning to what was actually happening at a real office that I could potentially work at.
So let's assume for a second that there are all different types of law and all different types of law firms. What is the thing that you like best about being somewhere that is more niche and boutique and selective?
Yeah, so I have a ton of freedom here. As with any creative approach you want to take with a case, everyone here is always willing to listen to new ideas, listen to new ways to approach litigating a matter. And that may be choosing what kind of evidence you want to go for. That part in itself, we don't have this rigid structure where you have to settle a case if it meets this certain dollar amount. Now, if we think that this case has more merit and we can take it further for the client, we'll do it. We're not really on anybody else's timeline. We're on our own. I found that there's a lot of freedom here to make your own choices and try different avenues that you think would be best.
When you look at that, I think that is one of the biggest differentiators between what you find at a boutique, selective, exclusive firm with a reputation like Cheeley Law Group versus big house trial shops.
Right. Or a mill.
Or a mill. We'll say big house trial shops.
Sure.
Talk to me about what goes into that. What does that mean for the client when they pick somebody like you versus just the big name with the big sign? And talk about the strategic advantages of what you see here and how that's translated into differences in your clients and your friends' lives.
It's very different here as we're reachable. This sounds funny, but I do give my clients my cell phone number. I like to be able to text them, and I've texted with you. I like to be able to talk to them, call them up, give them a quick rundown of what's going on. If they have any questions, I like for them to be able to reach me. And that's how I've seen Bob operate. His phone rings every 5 minutes and he answers every single call. He is always reachable. I like that. My clients don't have to go through leaving me a voicemail or getting passed around to a lot of different staff members before they can actually speak to me. Our staff members and the attorneys will become very close with the clients. We'll always have an in-person meeting at first. They'll get to know us. We'll get to know them. We can walk through step by step what happened instead of sending an internal memo around for everyone to find out the facts of what happened. It's a face-to-face meeting. That gives everyone great comfort that they're seeing who's going to be writing letters on their behalf, who's going to be doing research on their behalf. Once they know that, it takes a lot of the stress out of it, because when you're here in a law firm, it is probably not the best day of your life. You never really want to have a lawyer.
No.
Right.
I can tell you right now, nobody hires you because it's of something fortunate that has happened. It's obviously that you are in some sort of adverse circumstance that requires a legal professional, of which 95% of the people in this country are not. When you boil that down, you want somebody who can sit down with you, have your cell phone number, be able to ask you all the dumb questions.
Oh, yeah. And I don't think there are any dumb questions, honestly.
No.
It's so hard to know
the ones you don't ask. It's like, why didn't you ask me that a while ago? I'd have gone in this direction. And I'm sure that takes a tremendous amount of learning and trust. And look, nobody is a first-time plaintiff in a case out of a fortunate circumstance. It's always because you've had something happen to you or you've had something happen to your family and you need somebody with that level of expertise. Gabby, talk about some of the cases that you've had the opportunity to work on and the difference that you've made in the lives of your clients.
I like closing the chapter for people. This is a hard and painful thing to do when you're in a courtroom or getting your deposition taken or going to mediation. It's stressful. I like when we can resolve the case for people and they can move on with their lives. And they don't have to think about fighting for justice, fighting for just their truth to be accepted by other people. We can get them either a verdict or we can have it settled to their agreement and they can just move on with their lives and have comfort in that, knowing it's over and knowing that it was well taken care of in the best manner possible.
Talk about the relationships that you continue to have after one of your clients has a settled case.
So we just settled a case, and after it was settled, it was a very emotional day in court. We spoke with jurors. Some of them actually hugged the clients. It was just extremely emotional to be there. And I sent the mother a follow-up email the next day. I let her know that it was my favorite trial. It will have a huge impact on my career. I've worked on the case from law student to studying for the bar to actual attorney, and that this will stick with me for years to come and remind me of why I'm in this job, because that kind of case, helping people, helping parents that are hurt and grieving, that kind of thing is what's going to drive staying up that extra hour to finish the brief, looking for that extra case, reading that extra case, even when you're tired and you feel like, it's good enough. No, you can push just a little bit further just to see if you can find something to help these people a little bit more. And keeping in touch with those parents.
They become a part of you.
They do. You don't forget things like this. Everything like this sticks with you, and it just becomes part of the tapestry of your career.
One of the things that I think is fascinating is that it's nobody's first choice on my end until you need one. Can you talk about the stigma that exists and why you guys live totally outside of that?
Oh yeah, and I cannot stand this stigma because that is just so far from some of the amazing plaintiffs' attorneys I've met. I just went to a fantastic seminar with some of the best trial attorneys in the country. We all assembled in Honolulu and we all shared so many tactics and just brilliant ideas. And I was so impressed with everyone I met. And I just wish that people driving on the highway who think that we're all just here to scam you and take your money, that's not at all what this is. This is an art. It's an incredibly creative sector of litigation. And it's incredibly necessary too. Not only do we help the people that we're actually partnered with, but in terms of product liability, especially, you're changing everything for people, making things much more safe, changing laws, making sure companies don't make the same mistake twice, making sure that employees are trained better, having safeguards in place that weren't there before, but they now are because of this case. We're doing a lot more than what people watching TV commercials might think.
What excites you moving forward? And what are the types of things that you really want to pursue? I know you said you are an idealistic Aaron Brockovich environmental lawyer, and I'm sure that some of that still sticks with you.
Oh, always. I mean, I'd always like to be that beacon who cracks the code and is just driving the force behind the case. I think you're most animated and most passionate about cases when you have discovered the facts yourself. You know everything about it backwards and forwards, and no one could convince you otherwise. That's when you're standing up there in the courtroom, or you're defending your client, or you're writing an email even, but you know you're right, you know your client's right, and you're willing to put it all on the line because you have so much faith in your case. I can't wait to have enough experience and enough training to where I'm at that point in my career where I can be the one just driving the force of the case. And, I mentioned going to a seminar, learning all kinds of brand new strategies. There's so many strategies that I can't wait to employ. It just takes the right case. It takes the right set of facts to be able to integrate that in. And, I'm always looking towards more growth. I think that you can never stop growing as an attorney. There's constantly new information. Education is always out there. So
talk about how selective you are with your clients, because you guys don't take every opportunity.
No, and I would say out of every 10 client meetings or client calls, only 2 of them or 1 of them will actually amount to a real case. And there is a good deal of background research that has to be done before you can even take a case, because it may sound good on its front, but you need to look at the records deeply. For a medical malpractice case, you first need to have a medical professional evaluate the records to determine, hey, it sounds like something bad happened to this person, but we need to check and make sure that from a medical standpoint, something fishy actually did happen. So we have to be sure that our clients are being honest with us. We have to make sure that they're actually was a wrong that happened here. You don't want to just sue people for the hell of it. That's not what we're about. You always have to do your due diligence.
Gabby, thank you for joining me today on the Cheeley Law Review. We'll see you guys next week.